Have you ever written for video games? Well, I mean, technically the first project I ever did when I was 12 years old, sorry, I missed that comment about what sets apart something. Just go ahead and type that one more time in a couple minutes here. So the first project I did regarding video games was a video game, but it was early video game. It was called CDI, CD Interactive from Philips. It was for a Capital Media production called Shark Alert. It was like an interactive, almost documentary about sharks, and you learned about, you know, all the different kinds of sharks and stuff. It's not quite a video game like we have today, like first-person shooter. But I have done some of those kinds of things in various aspects. So, you know, I know a little bit about that, but not a lot. My main forte is film, movies, but I did for 10 years, from when I was 12 years old until about 22, do TV, radio, corporate, commercials, and lots of them. Sibelius, but Finale is very powerful. I just never started with that particular program. From what I've noticed about Finale programming, unless they've changed and then rewrote it from the ground up since its conception, it seems like they've programmed every situation independently. In other words, it was not using object-oriented programming. So, you know, in Sibelius, if they add a new feature, or interface effect, it shows up everywhere in the entire program, and you expect that change systemically. I don't find that in Finale, and that kind of bothered me in the back. Do you believe in generic show reels? There's a ton of pre-made music and how to present. That it went away. Do I believe in generic show reels? Okay, the idea behind your show reel, without falling to genres, I believe in the opposite. I have a lot of marketing experience. I ran a firm of 3,000 composers called the Composer Collective, and I got very deeply into marketing. I found it fascinating, and one of the things that I found out is that you want to be known as a specialist in whatever it is that they're looking for. Okay, so if your reel is a big smorgasbord of this and that, the first thing they're gonna do is listen to your basically they're gonna listen to your first thing you send them, your first track, okay? If that matches what they're looking for their movie, then they're gonna move on to track 2 to see if you can do more than one of those. And if that track 2 is not the same stuff that track 1 is, they're going to go, this guy's a one-hit wonder. Check track 3, and then boom, that's something way off in right field. They put you in the kind of low category. What you want to do is find out what you're submitting for, and you want to provide them with a ton of music, overwhelming evidence that you can make that kind of music over and over and over for 70, 80, 90 minutes of music that they need, and that you've done that dozens of times. So if you're going to be pitching for a comedy, you want to take all your comedy tracks and make a comedy reel. If you're pitching for a suspense thriller, you want to take all your suspense thriller tracks and, you know, show them all that. Give them overwhelming evidence for each of those things. Otherwise, you know, they're going to basically drop off and not be interested in you and move on to the next guy who has a lot more representation of that. Do they listen to the whole piece or only first few seconds? They listen to as much as they stay interested. Okay, if you have a boring section, they're not going to listen to it, okay? You give them your best track and you cut out the boring sections just for the demo, okay? They don't care about your vanity. They don't want to hear how you did that idea, got it stretched so far. You got to keep their interest. I'm sorry, I missed some of those questions. Is there a way does anybody know on Periscope, is there a way to look at what you guys just said after it's faded away? Or is this like Snapchat or something? Audio versus video show reels. Which one to send? Mix them. Whatever you want to show them. People aren't, don't have like a stereo system with a cassette player anymore, and it's not near a TV. And they need to put a video in, but it's not near their stereo system. whatever you give it, they're going to be able to play, and they're going to probably be playing it on their phone these days. So it better sound good in the mid-range. Give them video clips, give them audio clips, whatever you want to impress them with. I would suggest that if you do give them video, make sure it looks like a fantastic scene, because they know a lot more about movies than your composer buddies. Okay, so when they watch that scene, they're going to be like, woof, boy, this is awful. They're not even going to be able to listen to your music. So unless you have a really great standout scene, really well with good cinematography and acting, don't put that clip. As far as a publishing company, I mean, you own all your own music. Is LA crucial for finding composer work, or is it perfectly okay to find work remotely? I'm going to move on to this question, and we can come back to the other one if you reiterate it in a moment. It's very important to be in LA. I want you to go pick out a book called Outliers by Malcom Gladwell. Basically, it says you want to set yourself up to be struck by opportunity as often as possible. So, can you become Rachel Portman by living in England? And, yeah, a couple of these guys are going to get really lucky and hit the lottery. Rachel Portman is a composer in England, a film composer. You can hit the lottery if you live in Antarctica, okay? Wherever you are. But do you really want to play the lottery with all the odds stacked against you and be like just waiting your whole life for that maybe you'll get lucky? You need, in this book by Malcom Gladwell, Outliers, he basically shows you scientifically that, Steve Jobs and all these various people were successful because they were at the right place at the right time. And for film composers, that's post-production in the movie business. Where is that? Burbank and the surrounding areas. You don't want to be in Santa Monica. It's too far away. So when you say, should I be in LA? That's not even good enough. You want to be able to be walking down the street, going to this grocery store and bump into Steven Spielberg. These are the kinds of opportunistic moments that putting yourself in the right place at the right time will change your life and your career. And not to mention, you're going to be invited to parties, you're going to be going into edit suites and checking things out, going onto movie lots. While you're there, you're going to have opportunities to bump into people. It's just the opportunity that you're missing by not being LA is a waste of your life, really. It's a huge, huge mistake. Sound like Donald Trump. It's a tremendous mistake. So yeah, get your ass to LA. Would I score a movie about Donald Trump? Absolutely. He's a fascinating character, okay? I've read some of his books, and, I'm not a Republican. I don't have anything against Republicans, especially good ones. I'm a Democrat. But Donald Trump is a fascinating character, I would do a movie about the Ku Klux Klan, It's not a bad question. It's not a question about, it has to be whether or not they're a fascinating subject. Hey, I do horror movies, so why wouldn't I do a Donald Trump film? Terrible mistake as a young composer is not studying 3 times harder than you should, playing video games, wasting your time. When I was 5, I started piano, and I thought I would become a concert pianist. And I used to sleep under the piano. When I was 7, I took up trumpet and had private lessons every week, including on holidays, and piano. So now I'm having like 2 lessons a week. And then when I was 9, I was watching an Alfred Hitchcock film, and decided I wanted to become a film composer. So then I got into theory. I was taking 3 lessons per week. At 11, I got a special permission from my elementary school to go to the nearby college and study advanced mathematics, which is something I was interested in, and also a 20th century harmony and electronic composition, commercial arranging, and I continued to stack all those up in private teachers and all your extended learning. And of course I was in every band and symphony class at school every year. And so by the time I was 17, I moved to LA and went to UCLA, and I was taking classes there. And actually what I did is I doubled up on early years. I really wanted to get a boost and start scoring as early as possible, and I was very serious about it. And, work hard. If you read that book by Malcolm Gladwell, he talks about those who put in the extra hours are the ones that it makes a difference in your career. The ones that don't, he talks about, the ones that don't put in enough hours become X, the ones that put in a medium amount of hours become Y, and the ones that put in a lot of hours become Z. And the reason it's called Outliers is because it's those people that put in so much study, so much work, so much energy towards that particular craft, trade, or service that they become successful, and they're rare. Media composer, yeah. And when you say media composer, you're talking about everything but film, basically, when you say that, right? Everything but Academy Awards. By media composer, is that what you mean? Kind of like everything else? TV, radio, commercials, corporates, video games. Well, yeah, just go ahead and repose your question so I understand it more clearly. So you're saying because of all the software, you're talking about samples, I'm thinking, does that make it harder for a composer to be great and to be hired? There's a lot of movies made per year, and it just depends on if you're not a good composer or if you're a great composer. If you're not a good composer, you're going to have a lot of competition. Because guess what? There's a lot of other not a good composers out there. Okay? So if you're really good at what you do, now there's not a lot of those. And so you're going to get a lot of work. Put less hours in, less skilled. Yeah, it's going to happen, but there's enough movies out there for you to do 5, 10 movies or more per year if you hustle, no matter what. Now, regarding writer's block, what I recommend, and what I did to get over that particular problem, is for 1 year, buy one of those, books with staff paper, put it in front of your piano, and for 1 year with pencil and paper, and I highly suggest this works with just pencil and paper. I want you to sit in front of that piano every day and write an idea. And that can be also an analysis of something else. So just basically tap into the kind of inspiration center inside you and try and write an original idea. Now, when I first did that, on the first, beginning of it, it would take me a few hours to come up with one idea that I wasn't even really that happy with. But by the end, after a whole year, I could come up with a bunch of ideas in less than an hour that I was very happy with and were highly polished. Then, after that, you've done that so much, it's like the pathways are open. They're just always open. You did that 1 year of intense training. And what I did is I put that into compendium, and I have that. I can always kind of look back onto it, and that's a fun little thing you can do as an accomplishment when you're done. But now it's like riding a bike. Anytime I need to tap into inspiration and come up with something, I've got it. It's on tap. As a matter of fact, it's coming all the time. And if I'm not working on a project, when I do work on a project, it's like an explosion of like incredible energy, and there's absolutely no stop. There's no writer's block. And as far as if you're working on a film and you have 90 minutes of music to do, there's a couple techniques, that are part of your craft to get away from the writer's block, because you just cannot do analysis paralysis. If you're an analysis paralysis person, film scoring may not be for you, or you need to go see a psychologist or something, because that really is a problem. Analysis paralysis, I've seen it in some composers. It just ruins careers. You can't sit there going, no, maybe I should do this. I'm not sure this is right. You just have to keep plowing forward. You do not have 3 or 4 months to write this music, and it's a lot of music, and you need to keep on schedule, and you need to put out the right number of minutes per day or more. And if you don't, you're going to have to make up for it the next day, And so, part of the craft is, I talk about the snail shell pattern. You keep the cues that you work on a bit of a variety in the film. Start in the middle, go to this one, go to that one, go to this one, go to that one. Work your way around a little bit. If you have a problem with this one, jump right to another one. If you need to work on that a little more, but you're not quite inspired right now, go work on another one and come back to it. When you come back to it, you'll be inspired. If not, then do it again, rinse and repeat until you're down to those last 3 cues that are just like giving you headaches, and then you need to finish them. And that's just something you got to do. And sometimes the pressure just allows you to, because you're forced to. There's not you have to sacrifice sleep, and you don't want to do that. So there's this huge pressure to get it done, to reach for it, to pull it out of yourself. Thematic scoring is not dead, but I would say that that it's going out of style. It's not going out of style. It's that we're evolving past it. Okay? The orchestra used to be one big way you could express big ideas. We're getting past that now, and we're adding other instruments on top, and we're kind of getting even away from the orchestra. What this is, this craft, this art of film scoring, is manipulating sound such that it moves people's emotions in a way that synergistically with picture communicates something that neither one could communicate alone. That's the supreme, concept of what film scoring should be. And it doesn't have to be with orchestra. It doesn't have to be with themes. It doesn't have to be with music. Bernard Herrmann did the score for The Birds with bird sounds. There's no music in the entire movie. It's all bird sounds. Do you train on composing commercial beds as well? And do I use Quantize? No, I don't use Quantize. I edit everything. Of course, back in the days, I would use Quantize all the time, but it's better. You learn over time. It's wiser not to Quantize and just do another take. Just play in your parts, do it again, get it as close as possible, and then the thing that you're having trouble with, either slow down the tempo so that you can get it, or manipulate the notes slightly, and you become a very good editor. And I use LAS, which is a string system where you sample set, where you write for each desk. So 2 players per stand. Okay, you write. You basically you do your phrase. Let's say you got 14 violins, so you're gonna have to do that phrase 7 times. So you record 7 passes, and why would you quantize every single one? You could have just put those all together and just did 1 pass. Or, why worry about how badly you played one if you're going to have 6 other ones that might be better? And then when they go together, they kind of blur to become like a real performance. And that's one of the best ways you can do strings, is I recommend the LAS system. No, I would never copy and paste. Are you kidding? You can hear that. It's like, you get phasing. You don't want anything to be exactly like something else. Play everything in, and it'll be more organic and realistic sounding. I don't know if there's any of my tracks online from the Gauntlet. Yeah, Brian Tyler is a friend of mine. I love Brian Tyler. I find him to be one of the better composers in the field right now. He's classically trained. We love some of the same fundamental composers. We studied basically the same fundamental techniques in classical music. I like his music. and I admire his music, and I think that he's doing great for this field for film scoring. Fundamental composers and fundamental techniques. Composers in film and fundamental composers in classical, and the fundamental techniques for film, but mostly in that moment I was referring to fundamental techniques in classical music composition. Rimsky-Korsakov orchestration. You got to study Bach. I studied the Nadia Boulanger techniques of composition, which also taught Aaron Copland and Elliot Goldenthal, because Aaron was his mentor. And I learned also from Lalo Schifrin. That was one of my private teachers. And, the fundamental composers would be, Miklos Rozsa, Dmitri Tiomkin, Bernard Herrmann, Jerry Goldsmith, anybody who came up with their own thing. Those are foundations that you want to examine and extract gold from. And techniques, you can get that from school, film scoring school, or, joining these chats with me, or going to the Film Score Mentorship Group, or cracking open books on film scoring and learning those techniques. I like to teach those techniques, and I probably will in these future Periscopes or possibly Google Hangouts. Is it easier to start composing for commercials before entering film? They're not connected. So it's easier to compose for commercials than film. Okay? And composing for commercials will not help you compose for film. They're just two separate worlds, and either of them are wastes of time to each other. So if you want to be a commercial composer, film scoring is not going to get you there. If you want to be a film composer, commercial composing is not going to get you there. Commercials, you're talking about, short form, non-serious music. Fired from a gig. Yes, it happens. I think once or twice I may have been, but you got to deal with it. And I asked Jerry Goldsmith the same question, and he said that it happens. It's just, that's a percentage of the time, 2, 3, 4% of the time, it just doesn't work out. It's rare, but it happens. 1 out of 20. On Periscope, am I able to scroll back to any of your questions after they faded away? Anybody know about that? Or am I going to have to keep really good mental notes here? I don't think you can. I doubt it. Okay. I thought you meant you don't think I can take the mental notes. And then I doubt it. But yeah, no, you can't scroll back. Okay, well, if I missed your question, please ask again. We're probably going to end in a few minutes because I'm going to again double check everything was recording properly, because the last one actually wasn't. And this one supposedly will be. It will be with microphone, and all the hearts and all the comments and everything are going to be in the recording that's going to go up on YouTube. I do offer courses. I did a 3-day intensive seminar a few years back called Secrets of Film Scoring. Look it up on the internet and look it up on Facebook. There's a Facebook page for it, and there's an internet site for all the classes. But there's only the first one up right now because it took a lot of editing, and I wanted to test the demand. And there is a lot of demand, but there's also 39 other classes that I have to put together. And it took like a month and a half to put together the one class that I did from that 3-day seminar into a nice presentable form that I could sell online. But go to Secrets of Film Scoring. Check it out. There's a trailer there of the class so you can get an idea of what it's like. Secrets of Film Scoring. Would you love to scope on commercials versus film? I get asked to do short films and commercials. I would rather films. Well, But short films are basically a quick and nice and easy way to practice, I find. So, do short films for that reason. Unless, you're trying to get the Academy Award, then you do a really good short film, one of the better ones out there. But, they're hard to find. What was that about a PRO? Oh, yeah, it's vastly easier to get into independent films. Independent films, they let you call right up and you talk to the producer and say, hey, are you looking for a film composer? And then they say, yeah, submit your reel. I'll show it to the director. Studio films, you call up and they go, who are you? And then you say, I'm a film composer. They say, oh, I'm sorry. Well, we don't accept phone calls from, creatives like that. It has to be from your representative. So then you have to have an agent call. Then the agent calls, it's gate. Then you have to talk to their agent, and it's just gatekeeper after gatekeeper after gatekeeper. And that's, one of the good reasons to live in LA is to basically to get into the studio track. You need to know somebody. I saw some questions go by. Feel free to ask them again. Usually no budget in smaller indies, but totally fun. No, that's not entirely true. I'll give you a great example. The second, might have been the third, I think the second film I ever did was Table for One, renamed Wicked Ways, and it stars Rebecca De Mornay and Michael Rooker. And they didn't have very much money, you're right, but the royalties I got from that were insane. One check for 1 quarter, that's 3 months. Several years later, you start getting these royalties from airplay on, HBO or whatever. One check for just 3 months a time, representing just the composer's writer's portion, not the publishing side, which I also get, so basically you double your income that way. Just that one check in that 1 3-month period was $42,000, okay? So imagine double that for just 3 months, and then spread that, you have big months, you have small months, but spread that out over time, and that's just one film, independent film. But I'll tell you, it doesn't matter if it was a good film or a crappy film. What makes the money is if it has a star. So if you're doing an independent film and you want to make money, and you're not just doing it to practice, and you're seriously considering it because, you're trying to make money, make sure you choose ones with stars. Even if it's a crappy film, it will make money because it sells to the Asian market or wherever, and it will play for ages, and you get those royalties forever. Even after you die, your estate gets those royalties for decades. Yeah. So that was the second movie I did, and I think they had a budget, I probably can't disclose, but after this many years, if nobody tells anybody, I'll tell you, it was probably, I think, around $4,000 or $7,000. I don't know to you if that's a lot or a little, but that's pretty low. My standard creative fee is $20,000 at this point, and then they have to have a production budget on top of that. And that doesn't mean I always get that, by the way. If I want to work on a film because I know there's going to be $42,000 every quarter down the line, I'm going to sacrifice that. If they say, oh man, well, we only have $5,000, I might still do it because it might have some big stars. I will use live orchestra for some special cues because most of the independent films I work on do not have a lot of money, like we just talked about. So I will use live orchestra on special cues and then layering on top of other cues. But I've pretty much perfected. I'm known in the industry as one of the better guys to do orchestral music with computers and actually sound realistic. It's something I get hired for on occasion to when they don't have the budget to emulate the orchestra. But that's something you got to get really good at. I mean, you're gonna have to try to find films that maybe don't need an orchestra for their approach. Maybe you can use a synthesizer type quality score, that way you can get around that budgetary concern. But me, I'm not afraid to go for the orchestral sound because I know I can achieve it with my setup. That said, I do have a very highly invested setup. It's about $60,000 worth of of sounds and equipment and processing power in order to create that full orchestra. So it's like, hiring an orchestra every time anyway, because an orchestra is about $60, $70 to $100,000. Yeah, the libraries are definitely getting better. They're giving you more velocity layers, crossfade velocity layers. They're giving you more articulations. They're giving you more smartness as far as doing legatos or portamentos, or perhaps sensing if you're playing staccato or a stronger attack and that kind of thing. And yeah, they're getting better. But that doesn't mean that the way you play it and the way they even programmed it is going to come out like a real orchestra would play it. You still have to use your ears and common sense and knowledge and wisdom with a real orchestra in your brain to shape that into a good realistic performance on MIDI. I adjust all the parameters in all those libraries to be more realistic because they don't really give it to you that way. Just because it can do, yeah, I can do that in the future, sure, not at the moment, but I can show you the entire setup and we'll do a scope on that. It might be better to do that on a Google Hangout because then I can share my screen and be myself in a little picture-in-picture, and you guys can all be there too and asking questions. We can be a little more interactive. I can draw on stuff, So we might go Google Hangouts with that. Yeah. Hey, let's end this here since it's on such a positive note. Give me a bunch of hearts to let me know how much you love this particular Periscope. And thank you very much. And I will be back later tonight. I might even be back this afternoon. I try not to go on when my kids are here because it's just it's a tornado zone. So so late nights and when they're at school. And thank you very much, everyone. And remember to find me and the mentorship group on all the various social networks, including YouTube. And there's a couple examples of my works there. And Twitter is a big one. And Facebook. But I'm on everything. Instagram, you name it. Okay. All right. See you guys in a little bit. Thank you so much.